Hi class. Welcome to part 2 of our course. This might be a little confusing because it says lesson 1, but it's lesson 1 of part 2, and so what I did was I just made it lesson 6. So if you're confused about that, that's why. So today's lesson we're going to be talking about performance and organization. When you're creating a website, you want to keep things really organized because the code can tend to get a little bit messy. You will get to the point where you have so much code and styling that you can't keep track of it all. And so if you start out really organized, then that's going to help you down the line. If you're just building a small website, it's not as crucial, but if you get into bigger projects, you want to have a way that you can approach it and keep yourself really organized. So that's what this lesson is about. So we're going to learn about strategy and structure, object-oriented CSS, scalable and modular architecture for CSS, and reusable code. So let's talk about the performance of your CSS code. So your code base is the whole collection of code that's used to build your website. The code base can greatly affect the speed of development and the speed at which a page will render, whether you're talking about HTML or CSS. If you have messy code, then the page will load slower and it will greatly affect the user's experience. So your job is to take the time to design the right code structure that will lead to a better experience all around. And if you learn how to set up your code structure now, you won't run into issues later. So the first step in improving a website's performance and organization revolves around identifying a good strategy and structure for developing your code base and finding ways to reuse common code. So when you are styling your website using CSS, the way that you organize it is actually up to you. So you can choose how you want it to look, but the simpler the better. So if you can apply certain styles to multiple elements on the page, then your code is going to look a lot cleaner than if you were to style each element the same. So one way is by separating styles based on intent, which includes creating directories for common base styles, components, or modules. The separation of styles encourages well thought out presets and the ability for styles to be widely shared and reused. So for example, let's say you have standard styles that you're going to use on every page of your website. That is going to require you to have an external style sheet or a .css file. And that .css file can be attached to every HTML page of your website. And that code will be used on every single page, even though it's not included on every single page, it is linked to. So that would be your base styles. The component styles are going to hold all the styles that you need to handle buttons, forms, alerts, or tables, or even navigation for your website. And then a modules directory will hold your footer and header styles. So two principles that will help you build a scalable website, which means you can make it as many pages as you want without adding too much code, with a strong structure and a reasonable amount of code, are separate the structure of the website from the skin and separate the content from the container. So let's talk about what that means. So separating the structure from the skin, it means removing the layout of an element from the theme of a website. So if you have a theme that you're working with, try and contain that in its own sort of file, like a template or something like that. And then the layout will be built into each HTML page. The structure of a module should be transparent, allowing other styles to be inherited and displayed without conflict, which means style only the structure of the element and leave the look of the styles to be inherited or taken from somewhere else. This is best used with a solid grid structure along with well-created modules. The other option is separate content from container. So a container refers to a class selector that defines a parent element that is wrapped or contained around a group of nested child elements. So that would be like a div or a span tag that encompasses several elements on the same page. A parent element is an HTML element that has other elements nested within it. Children elements are elements that are nested within another element. So separating the content from the container means that you're going to remove the dependency of a parent element and write the code in a way that the styles are not expecting a parent element. And it can exist alone so that no matter where the code is placed on the page, the styles will be applied. And a heading should look the same regardless of which parent it is nested within. So a good way to take care of that is to just style all of the H2 headers with a H2 style instead of making it specific to the parent element of whatever that H2 is. So for example, here's one that they give us. So the CSS, there's 3 classes: heading, heading large, and message. So the classes heading and heading large are applied to a parent element of the paragraph. So the div is wrapping around the paragraph, and the paragraph has its own class of message applied to it. So scalable and modular CSS is a type of code, a way to write your code methodology that promotes breaking up styles into 5 core categories. So this would be like your style sheet. So you would have the base styles, which are going to be styling your whole page, the layout styles, which are just applying to the boxes and the layout of it, the module styles, the state styles, and the theme styles. So the module styles are like things like the navigation, buttons, any of those kind of things. The state would be like hover over or on click. They might change when they're in a certain state. And then the theme related styles are related to the look of it. So yeah, this is just summarizing that. So the base category handles core element styles, such as general defaults like background colors. Okay, the layout category handles the sizing and layout of different elements. The module styles are specific styles targeting individual parts of a page, including the nav or header footer. The state styles handle any changes to a state, such as a hover, active tab, or a button. And the theme category would account for any styles based around the skin or look and feel of the page. So that's 5 different categories of styles that you could use. They're not saying you have to use that methodology, but this is a good general guideline for how to organize your style sheets. So this is a descendant selector here, and it's actually got 2 classes applied to it. So when the tab is active, it's going to do whatever these styles are. And then you can also style the paragraph within that. And then you can also style the tab is active paragraph. So that has to do with the state and all of those things. So which methodology you choose is your personal preference. You can mix and match or create your own structure of how you would like your style categorized. As long as you keep your code clean and easy to read and understand, the method is less important. Okay, and also we want to keep our code clean in order to cut down on file size, and that will help our websites to load faster. So one of the leading performance issues on websites come from large file size. A quicker way to help cut down on a CSS file size is to reuse styles as much as possible. Whenever there are repeated styles, they should be combined, allowing code to be shared. So this is the bad way to write the code. So you would do a class, and they would have the same exact styles to them. This is the good way to write it. You can use a comma and then actually have two classes that have that same style. But the best way to do it is to create a completely new class that has those styles, and you apply that new class just to the elements you want it on. So during this lesson, we learned how to reuse styles, introducing two different methodologies: object-oriented CSS and scalable and modular architecture for CSS, as a baseline of how to start thinking about writing CSS. So there you have it. Just keep your code clean, keep it organized. Try and write notes into your code so that you remember what you've been doing, and we'll get some practice in.